Oh boy.
Yeah. There's a little bit of an echo on my end for some odd reason, but welcome, you fuckers. The world can burn in hell for all I care today.
Well then. That's a great way to start. Love it.
Hey man, it's a salty way to start. Let's keep it 110. Welcome, man. We're talking about a really good subject today. So forgive my salty ass. I got stuck over with work. So
yeah, Steve's work sucks and keeps holding them later than they're supposed to, and he's having all sorts of fun over there. But hey, that's over now.
It's over.
So let's have some fun. Let's talk some D&D. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome. Yeah, it's sadly had to cancel last week. Didn't really have a topic yet.
Yeah, we didn't have anything.
So that's my bad. I
felt
really should
bad
plan in
too
advance a
because
little
I'm
better.
like, well, I was trying to think of something, but I was getting my can kicked at work. I was like, God damn, I am literally drawing a blank. And then you sent me that, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm actually pretty good at that.
So, luckily we have a topic this week, though. So we do have our show again.
Thank your wife.
We'll try and continue to be proactive with our topics. So we don't cancel again.
Good Lord, it's a struggle sometimes, right?
Right.
Real life happens.
But hey, welcome one and all to the Flycast. If you're new around here, hi, I'm John. That's Steve. We're a couple of nerds who really like playing D&D, have a lot of experience DMing and just playing between the two of us, and have a little bit of a community here who, ask questions and that sort of thing. And we decided, hey, you know what? Let's just go ahead and make a podcast and get to talk about this stuff. So that's what we do. So I've been doing this for a little while now. It's been fun. Basically, we usually just kind of go ahead and chat about a topic on the front end, take questions from the Discord on the back end, and yeah. So, again, if you're new around here, go ahead and join the Discord. There should be a link if you're watching this live, or if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or whatever in the future. There should still be a link somewhere to go ahead and join that Discord. That way, you can find out what the next topic will be, leave questions in advance, all that fun stuff. But without further ado, welcome. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll just jump on in. Today, our topic is multiclassing, and that's it. It's not a question, not a back and forth. Hello to my wonderful parents.
Is that your mom?
There. Yeah, that's well, I mean, probably my mom specifically, but potentially both of them. Who knows?
Okay, yeah. I just see that. I'm like, Crawford. Like, what? Is that your first? My first thought was like, is that your sister?
Like, no, are you kidding me?
It's your mama. I don't know. That's it. That's awesome. Well, hello, Mother Crawford. It's nice to hear from you.
So, yes, with that, we're going to go ahead and talk about multiclassing. The end. So, I mean, topic. We don't have, and we've got certainly some questions for the back end, but that's that. Right. I mean, that's just the topic. We don't have like a specific question to kick it off or anything. We're just going to talk about it. No. So, I think, a good place to start is like. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is normally how I just kick things off, honestly, is just say,
man.
Steve, what do you think about it? So, we'll do that, and then we'll go from there. So, great.
So one thing the Lord has gifted me with, it's a gift of gab and the gift to pull things out like this. I like multiclassing. Okay, I will put this out there, though. I do not recommend it for an inexperienced player, and here's why. Because multiclassing does one of two things. It's either really great for a story-driven purpose for your character, so you have to be okay with maybe being behind the other characters, maybe taking a short siesta from a power spot that most characters get these big boosts at for your character's development. Now, here's the flip side. You can put together a really, really cool character based on what level you do certain things at. So that's the other side. You could, like, the power gamer in me, and let me be specific, the power gamer in me loves to do this sometimes, and we've seen some really cool combinations of multiclassing, and some have been done by John. A lot of them I've actually seen done by John, and
Yeah, I
I've
like to
even had a
multiclass a
couple
lot.
that's worked for myself. I'd say the most powerful I've seen so far has been Paladin Sorcerer because they get so many
That's a good one.
stinking slots that when you're like, even if you run like a tanky spec, if you run
Guys,
a
I'm too scared
tanky
to
spec
multiclass.
Paladin, don't be a baby. Anyway, I'm afraid to swear. John's mom's in the chat. I'm trying to be good. Or I'd call you at worse words. But Mike, it's like somebody's mom's in the chat. I'm actually trying to be good. But but it's really cool from a certain point. You just got to know when to do it. Follow your gut, okay? Because if you do it too early, you're going to take a backseat to other characters. And sometimes that may be unfulfilling of gameplay for you. But if you are just, and I'll use Jazz as an example, Jazz actually is a very creative storyteller kind of character player. He might actually be good at taking a slide of a backseat to make his character more thematic. So let's say he wants to, he's a, what's the word? He's, thanks, Mother Crawford. She, she's like say like you have I'm just going to use an odd example. We'll use a critical role example, which like this particular multi-class didn't make a ton of sense to me. Maybe it makes sense to you, but the rogue paladin,
I was
that
wondering if
one,
that's what you were going to talk
yeah,
about.
that
Yep.
was yeah. For you might have a different opinion on it, but I'm like, from a
Well, it made sense.
thematic point,
Made
it
sense
made
story wise.
sense.
Though honestly, he probably just should have multiclassed into Warlock instead. Because I mean, Raven Queen
Right.
super fits that. But
Yeah, that would have really went more warlock, but I'm gonna chalk that up to him just not, going, no, I want this, because a player at the end of the day is gonna do what a player wants to do, not necessarily what logic dictates. Logically, the Eldritch Blast would have been a better situation, but given the fact that his how he played that character, he was stab first, ask questions later. So that's where the paladin part does make sense to me. But thematically, it was really cool. Like, this is one of those, he talked with his DM, the story was going this direction, and this was the option that the two of them came up with. Whether in and that's something, again, that takes a lot of communication between the player and the DM, and be like, well, this is the direction this is going. What do we want to do? And that's where I think that line of communication is, you got to communicate that with the DM. Get some suggestions, especially if you don't quite know, because like especially with the two of us, we're pretty open. I've done some things with John's character that was pretty cool. I was like, well, this is the path this character's going. Let's give him some devil powers. Unfortunately, that character had to leave the party, but it was
because he
cool.
was evil,
Evil.
very. Yeah, no,
Super evil.
I like multiclassing. I think yeah, I think I've done it before. I've done it twice that I can think of. I think only the two times, now that I think about it, but it feels like more than that. But the two that I can
It does
remember
feel like more than
are
that.
Titus, who was cleric fighter, and then Markle, who was paladin sorcerer. And so the first time I really like the reason I did it. I did it because it just made a lot of sense. He was a warrior. He was a soldier.
Right?
But he also was devout. He was a cleric of Thor. And he, yeah, he was very very religious in that aspect and whatnot. So it really made sense for both of those classes. And I guess I could have made a paladin thinking back on it too, but it just I don't know. The cleric fighter
I
just really
think
seemed to fit the character very well.
I can answer that question because I think we looked at it, and cleric fighter was more efficient because fighters get so much more from a melee perspective. They don't really, a paladin in that situation isn't going to add anything to a cleric spell wise that a
Right,
cleric doesn't already have access to.
right.
So again, that comes back to that whole communication piece, is like, what's going to make sense? And you did all the homework yourself. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
that makes sense because the
Well,
fighter just makes things a lot easier.
And I think too, I didn't want him to be like a smite machine, which is what
Right.
paladins generally are. I mean, not necessarily, but like, yeah, I just wanted him anyway, whatever. But he like that was a lot of fun, and there was story reason behind the way that I multiclassed him, and then with Markle, yeah, there was no story reason for giving him sorcerer
No,
levels whatsoever.
no,
It
it
was
was
just
I want extra slots to kill things
it
with.
was just
Okay.
yeah, it was just purely power gaming. Though that said, I'm pretty sure, make him a divine soul sorcerer,
Right.
which made sense too because he was I mean he was a holy warrior. So,
But
um,
again, that goes back to timing though, because at
yeah,
that point in the game, Markle had, because we started that campaign at 11. Okay, so let's just put that in there. So there's certain points in a paladin's level where there's not much more you're going to get that's helpful.
hmm
So in your situation, you were willing to take the lesser hit die on level
right,
to get, cantrips, which were kind of fun to play around with thematically,
yeah,
and extra spell slots to use for those smites. Because Markle wasn't, at one point he was the tank. We had a barbarian for a little bit, but it just kind of, Jimmy unfortunately just had to leave at that point.
yeah,
But you still, like, you had at that point in the game, you had enough magical items, you had enough, you know, hit points at that point, that and the AC also helped. That even if I put something with a +10 or whatever to hit you, this character could take it. And it was just a really well built, character thematically and also everything else.
yeah,
So
and I mean the thing too with the whole I mean I was getting a little bit less hit points, but that's literally the only thing I was sacrificing.
it was the only
Um,
downfall.
it it still made sense thematically though for the character because his whole thing wasn't how hardy he was hit point wise. It was you just can't hit me. That's how he tanked because he had an AC of like 24,
22,
and
20.
then
Oh, really? What's it at? Yeah.
I think so because he had like +1 plate, like a +1 shield, and a ring of protection. I think that gets you to
Yeah.
22. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Pretty
But
high.
but then paired that with taking the shield spell as well, which then, like, if I cast shield, would bring my AC up to 29, and if I had Shield of Faith on as well, that would bring it up to actually 31. So, I mean, absolutely ridiculous numbers, but like that still thematically fit with what Markle was trying to do, was just avoid ever being hit. So
Right.
I mean, it did kind of make sense from that regard. And my only point is like I think so if you're going to multi-class, I think the best way to do it is to actually have a story reason for it or have it fit the
Right.
character somehow. You can definitely do it and just be a power gamer, and that's fine. I think power gaming gets a little bit of a bad rap because it's like, oh, well, like, we're all about intense role play, and if you just want to roll dice, you could, like, play a video game instead. So shut up. Like, it's still
There's a
like
balance. Come
people
on.
exactly as long as you like aren't absurd about it, like you can have a lot of fun building a really powerful character. I've done that before.
Right.
So I don't think you necessarily have to have a purely story reason. I think I think if the reason is this would be really cool to see and to play out, I think that's a
Right.
great reason. I also do think it would be a good idea to try and work in a story reason, like why did the druid suddenly decide to start taking warlock levels, or did the
Right.
that sort of thing. And I mean, it doesn't, like, it can come from a place of because I think it's cool, and then you can kind of come up with a story reason for it. um I think I think that Markle one is a great example, right? I wanted it because I wanted more potent spell casting. I wanted to be able to have more slots to use more smites. But then there was also it also makes me harder to hit, and it makes sense that this is what this character would go for, and he's already reached the pinnacle of strength. Now he's learning to hone his mind, and that actually did kind of make sense because he was really
Dumber than
stupid
a
when he
bag of
started off,
hammers.
right? Like
Yeah.
so it all did kind of work there. And then like with Titus, it just was the character. It was kind of the whole plan
Right.
from the beginning. So I think finding a good story reason, whether that's the immediate reason or something that you kind of come up with on the back end, will kind of help make it make more sense. I think Tracy does this really well too, because she's multiclassed at least once that I can think of, maybe two or three
He's
times.
taken a few weird ones here and there.
But every time, like there's specifically, and I mean she is a story first
Right.
type of player. But every time she's had a reason. So like the one that really comes to mind is in the Outlaws campaign. She was I think it was a sorcerer. I'm pretty sure it was
Sorcerer.
a sorcerer, and then she fairly early on found this ancient shield that was a really powerful shield, and it was a shield of Sif from before. We used kind of some of the Norse gods, and it was before she had
Right.
arisen to godhood. As she was a human, she had this shield, and then once she arose to godhood, like it just kind of became this relic that was lost to time. And because she found it and then was able to use it, she ended up deciding, you know what? Like, I've never really cared about the gods at all, but this is really cool, and ended up like multiclassing into paladin. So kind of did the opposite of what Markle did, right? He started as paladin, then went
But
to
it,
sorcerer, and she did the opposite. But like,
yeah.
it made perfect sense. It was like it wasn't, it made perfect sense for her because she was like, no, like this thing has shaped my character so much that now she wants to embrace it. I think that's really cool.
I think it's one of those things that you need to, like, again, you got to be prepared for whatever consequence there may be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think part of it is you need to work with your DM to see like where the story is going and how
Yeah.
your character is developing. Because a lot of it, like when it comes to multi-class, sometimes you think you're going to multi-class the character and then you don't. Like I'm playing in our home game, I'm replaying my Dash Wilder character,
And you still
but
haven't changed, yeah.
I still haven't changed because like I love being a bard. I think everybody knows I like being a support kind of character because I'm a team first kind of guy normally. Well, in this particular rendition of the character, I'm still a support kind of guy, but I am the tank. And every level I've looked at so far, it's not enough for me to change it. And there's a reason. Because even I still can do the performance pieces not quite as well as I could as a bard, but I'm playing the character how I feel like the character should be developing. Right now
Mm-hmm.
he's probably the least religious paladin you could think of. Basically how I wrote his backstory is he kind of fell into it by accident. Made this pact that he didn't really know what he was doing with because the god that he worships is a good-looking woman.
Yeah.
And he's kind of fallen into this whole then that's why we went also that's why we went in with the whole fact that he is a we found a god that works with music and with
Mm-hmm.
the trees, so that made a lot of sense thematically that he's like, and because he has a negative in his intelligence, he's too stupid to realize what he did.
Yeah.
But now that he's done it, though, like he's an action guy. I play him as an instinctual character, which can be bad for the party. But now the party's learning how to push his buttons, and now he just goes.
Yeah.
They use him in a correct way because they're like, okay, Steve's literally playing the character. He's not thinking as a character, but like that's where I've had to like really weigh it though every level that John has given us because I'm like, what's going to be good for my character versus the development of the character.
Yeah.
So like with me, I've actually taken the opposite approach and be like, I'm going to hold off on that because there's things in this paladin level that I need for my team.
Yeah.
But that's how I play the game. Now, let's say, like in another situation, I've seen people take some really random stuff and they take it at really random levels. And unfortunately, when they do that, I don't really have an example of who or what, but let's just say at second level, you're a wizard and then you take a second level in rogue, okay? You do that, but by the time fourth and fifth level come around, you're kind of nerfed compared to your
Mm.
team. You're having to wait a whole nother level, which the experience gap, even let's say even if you're doing it like an accomplishment style leveling, that still takes time. That
Mm.
may take a whole arc. So you might get frustrated as a player. So my biggest caution to that is weigh the options. Is it for your theme, for your personal story and development? Are you willing to be patient for that to come to pass? Because a lot of times, if you are, your character's going to be awesome. Just know when to do it. I mean, I did
Yeah.
that with Dalton. We waited. We looked at the level. I talked to John about it, and it
Well, you
just made
changed what
sense
you
for
did
that
with him
character.
too. You changed what you were doing with him
Exactly.
too, because so Dalton was a ranger, and your original plan was to take, I think, 3 levels ranger and then take everything else fighter. I
Everything
think
fighter.
that's what your original plan was.
Everything
Um,
fighter. Yeah.
and then as we started to get there, that plan started to change a little bit. You took 3 levels of ranger, and then I can't remember if you immediately multiclassed or if you waited till 5. I think
I
you
think I
waited till
waited.
5. And this is another big thing too. So like, yeah, you were talking about how like when does it make sense for the character to multiclass? Also, when does it make sense for you as a player to multiclass? Which you were kind of hitting on a little bit as well. I think multiclassing before level 5 is almost always a really bad idea unless
Bad idea.
you're playing a one shot where you're a level 3 character or something along
Right.
those lines. At which point, I don't know.
And then
Might
who
be worth it.
cares? Yeah. Who
Um,
cares? Yeah.
But the reason is level 5 specifically is a huge level in 5th edition. If you are a martial character, that's a fighter or a paladin or something, that's when you get your extra attack. And if everyone else around you is getting to attack twice on a turn and you still only get to attack once because you really wanted to pick up that rogue level, it just sucks. Like, you feel very far behind. It's also a little bit less important, but still very important for spellcasters, because 5th level is when you get access to your 3rd level spells, and 3rd level spells are big ones. That's Fireball,
Big.
that's Revivify, that's there's some real important spells that you get at that level. That's Counterspell,
Yeah.
that's Dispel Magic. So like, there's some big ones, and if if you're a wizard and you decided to take that one level in, Rogue again. I don't know why I'm picking on Rogue, but you decide to take that one Rogue level at 4, and the rest of your party can cast Fireball and attack twice, and you're over here like, I'm casting Scorching Ray, I guess. Like, it just sucks. So I think after 5 is the first time that you can really, in a campaign, that you can really start to consider it. Anyway, though, so Dalton originally was going to go 3 Ranger, all the rest Fighter. You get to 5, and then you finally feel like you can start multiclassing into Fighter, but you've started to play your Ranger differently. You started off with the idea of being a dual wielder, and then you kind of gradually over time started to taking more to being a ranged character. And you would still pull out your swords from time to time as well. That's the beauty of being a ranger. You can normally like swap out pretty easily, but you've hit this point, and now when you take your fighter level, you realize, you know what, I kind of want to take the archery fighting style, because that way I really can be really effective in ranged, because I already had the two-handed or the two-weapon fighting.
Already had the two-weapon
from ranger. So you did that, and then you got to 3rd level in fighter and decided, like, I think originally you were gonna go with like
all
probably
fighter.
Battle Master or something like that and keep going, but instead you decided to choose the Arcane Archer, because it just fit with what you were doing better. And after that, I don't think you took a single fighter level again. You kept
we went
Ranger,
all
because we started to kind of look at
Ranger.
what everything was, and it just kind of made more sense for the character. It was more cool abilities. So like, that's a great example of having one idea going in and it just changing.
It changes.
I mean, I think that's happened with Dash in the Wine Woman Adventure Tour as well, because I think at level 5 you were planning on multiclassing into Bard, and now I think you're still probably planning on it, but not until 13. Because that's when,
not till much later.
That's a good spot for Paladin to change or to multiclass.
Right.
So I think,
and it was like that's literally that reason.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, is kind of taking a close look at what you get in your main class versus what you would get if you multiclass, and there are plenty of great times to multiclass. There's a lot of great reasons to multiclass, but I would be very wary of multiclassing just because it sounds fun. Like, again, if it's a one shot or whatever, who cares? But if it's a character you're going to be stuck with for a while, don't nerf yourself, because you are giving up more than you think you are when you multiclass. And again, there's some great times to do it, but just make sure you're not going to nerf yourself too much. Good.
Well, going back to a theme though, I mean, even with Dalton, like when we switched him a little bit more to ranged, like when people would get in too close, we actually went back to those roots from a thematic, going, all right, you want to get down and dirty. Dalton like flips a switch.
Yeah.
He puts the bow away because the bow actually made him want to be safer. But when he put the bow away, he pulls out these short swords and he literally starts and he gets more reckless. So we played it in a way that was thematic to like I was literally, and I probably did this subconsciously because we were gaining players in different roles. And this goes to like, what's your role in the party? And at this point, like it was revolving around me being a single target damage dealer, and I was doing so much from a range because then I have action surge, or Sergey as we have affectionately. Yeah. Bless your heart, Billy. I love you, buddy. And it was, but then we would go back to that old thematic bandit style Dalton, where it's like, if you're going to get in close to me, I'm going to show you no mercy.
Yeah.
And it was cool to play it like in a scene like that, to be like, well, Dalton goes nuts. He swings once, he swings twice, he takes a bonus action, swings again, he action surges. So you got like literally this mental image of these dancing swords. So it's really it was a cool thematic thing. It's probably one of my favorite character builds I've ever done, and it was literally balanced by
very good one.
It was story first, because that's what we talked about it when we built the character. It was a story-driven, darker character, because let's be honest, I don't get to play those that often. I normally have to play the charismatic guy because I can talk.
Him and Gareth are the only two I can remember.
God, I loved Gareth. Gareth's still one of my favorite characters.
Well, but that's because he's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Which was like that's another thing that I actually love, though. This is a totally different topic for another time. Maybe this is a good another episode of like kind of basing characters off of pre-established other lore. But
he didn't start that way, though.
Because that was an accident. Like he started off completely different and then slowly became Darth Vader. I think that's a great example of a character that ends up kind of like taking on a certain archetype, but you don't have to, you didn't start off with Darth Vader in mind and name him Anakin
Skywalker,
Dark something or something like that. So no, I think that's a good one. I think kind of going back to Tracy's Sildiel character is another good example of just kind of like a character evolving over time, like Dalton did, because she started off as a sorcerer and then slowly started taking paladin levels, and before long, like you watched as she went from being a spellcaster, blaster to a
right in
tank,
your face.
To a tank and damage dealer, and then by the end of the campaign you forgot that she also had all these sorcerer spells, and then every once in a while we'll just pull out lightning bolt and it'd be like, oh crap, you can do that?
Wait, what?
I forgot about that. So I think that's really cool to kind of be able to watch a character grow like that and change. And again, I mean, if you pick the right times to multiclass, and it can be really crazy. Seeing a paladin cast a bolt of lightning, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Really cool.
At the same time, though, those first couple levels of multiclassing might be really rough. So you just gotta you gotta pick and choose your spot. Because if you do it too early, you're gonna be real
you're gonna be
for a while.
You're not probably gonna be too happy when you see your friends do some really cool shit.
And that's the thing too, right? Like if you don't care too much about like the party dynamic of you feeling underpowered, like if that's not a big deal to you, then do whatever you want to. But that's the thing. It can really suck to watch as everyone else does way more than you all the time. So that's just kind of why I caution it sometimes, but it can be a lot of fun. So
I think it's gonna that goes into probably another topic for another time, but of when to retire, if you need to retire a character or not. So we
a good one.
Write that down as a topic.
Maybe that's next week.
Write it down quick.
Yeah.
When to
well, we are like exactly at a halfway mark, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then we will come back with answering questions from Discord. Anyone here live with us, go ahead and throw more questions there in the chat if you like. We'll try and get those too.
We'll get them.
But we will be back in about 3 minutes. Peace.
these. Oh, well, welcome. We were just having a side conversation here. I caught talking about other things. Oh no. Whoopsie. My bad. To be fair, it was Dungeons and Dragons related.
Steve's just blabbering.
Yes, I'm good at that. Hey man, I need to talk. I need to vent a little bit. It's been a rough day. So
He's had a rough day at work.
Allow me to share.
Work. I don't know. Welcome back. We're back with the Flycast.
We were
I don't
just
know.
talking
Should
about
I
some
should
of
be
these questions
welcoming
here.
you back? You guys didn't go anywhere. We kind of did. So maybe we're back. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I'll try to get myself back on task here.
Yeah. We've been talking about multiclassing, so that's been fun. Fun discussion there on the front end. We hit some of our questions already, just kind of like chatting in the first end, and we've actually come up with a topic for next week. So I'm actually going to real quick put this in Discord. The topic was
write it down.
Next week's topic: when to retire a character.
There we go. We're proactive for once. Holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, that way there'll be an episode next week. Gosh.
God, look at us be responsible. Holy shit.
But
a new
we've
one
got
for me.
some more questions here. We're going to go ahead and go over them, have some fun there. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get these guys pulled up. So again, we've already kind of touched on some of these, so we might just kind of like rattle off a couple of them that we've gone through already. But I'll just kind of go in order. First question: what's the benefit and downside to multiclassing? We have talked about that already. I think a benefit can be you can come up with some really cool combos, right? Like, and a lot of them have been talked about before in certain places, right? But like for instance, let's say the barbarian who multi-classes into druid, or rather the druid who takes one level in barbarian, and then they wild shape into a bear, but because they're a barbarian, they rage, and therefore have a resistance to certain types of damage. Or maybe they take 3 levels and go bear totem barbarian, and then they have resistance to everything except psychic damage, while in, I mean, as you get stronger, you can,
I never thought about
in
that. That'd be a
earth
good one.
elemental form. Like, that's crazy
A raging
powerful.
earth elemental.
Yeah.
That'd be stupid.
And that works because Rage says that you cannot concentrate as if on a spell, but a Druid's Wild Shape is not concentration, so you can do that.
No.
So there's some really cool. I mean that's a good one. I've seen the Paladin and Sorcerer work really well together, or really anything charisma based, right? Paladin Bard will work really well. Paladin Warlock could work really well.
Anything fighter.
You get 12 levels of Paladin, throw the rest in Sorcerer. That way you have a lot more spell slots that you can do more damage with your smites with. And those are just a couple off the top of my head, but like you can do some really cool combos, and you can kind of like stretch things in new and interesting ways, and really have a lot of fun with it. And another great example, I had no idea that this would ever work, but Grady once multi-classed, I think, 1 level in Barbarian and the rest Rogue, and played that Dragonborn, and that way when he dual wielded, he would go ahead, or maybe it was 2 levels so that he could get the 2-weapon fighting style, and then he would use his main attack and do the sneak attack with a dagger, and then with his offhand he would be wielding a hand axe, so he could use strength, and while he was raging, do extra damage with that one and resist damage. Like, it was a really cool combo.
It worked.
It worked because he went swashbuckler, so he could still use a bonus action to attack, but then still get a free disengage because of the swashbuckler thing. So there's a lot of really cool combos you can come up with that way. The downside, of course, is that you are not getting whatever benefit you get from your main class at that level.
Right.
and that can definitely put you behind. So we talked about that some, but that's kind of the both sides there. When do you recommend taking your first level in a different class? We've talked about this a little bit, and it definitely depends on what your main class is. I think regardless of what your main class is, not until 6. That's the first time that I think you can actually. Again, if you want to do something different and do it before, then do it. But the issue is second level. I mean, I guess you could, but then you're pushing off that 5th level bonus.
Right.
4th level's your first ability score increase. You don't want to skip that.
No.
5th level is again like a big bump. It's a multi attack or 3rd level spells, so it's very, very important to get to there. And then at 6th, it really depends on your class. A lot of classes, that's the first time that you can start to look at it, because whatever you get at 6th level isn't like game changing. It can still be really good,
Right.
though. For instance, I think it's a fighter's. I think that's when the fighters get their extra ability score increase, which makes it kind of tough to turn that down. But at the same time, you can always just take that 6th level later on and just push it off a little bit.
Exactly.
So it really depends on the class, but I would say not until at least 6.
Barbarian fighter's good because, like, if you go 5 levels of barbarian and the rest, like, you go the rest fighter, you're going to get all those benefits of a fighter, and you're going to get a lot more ability score increases, and you're going to be able to be literally this front line. Like, I built one of my one-shot characters that way. Like, thematically, he's this real calm, cool individual, and when he raged, like, you could see like a subtle change in his body, but like he was angry and he was fighting angry, and he was able to resist. He'd get the action surge. It was a really powerful build, so I went totem bear so that way I could get the resistance. Now I did give up certain things later that a barbarian might get, but for me it was worth it because I would get the other things that a fighter gets. I would get the action surge is so huge for me when I play like a melee character, and I also get that free healing of whenever you get the whatever it is. I can't remember what it's called, but you get the roll the
A
hit
second
die
win.
as a you get your second wind, and that, believe it or not, that can be clutch. You get like 5 or 6 hit points back when you've been cracked. You can be up for an extra round, save your spellcaster or a buddy like a
Mhm.
resource. That's so
I
clutch.
think I think the other thing to keep in mind too when you're planning out multiclassing, I guess, is what you kind of want that final build to be. And
Right.
again, like with Dalton, this can change. Dalton wanted to be more fighter than anything, and it just the way things turned out, it didn't go that way. But if you think about that on the front end and think, okay, so for instance, maybe you want to call it 20th level. At 20th level, if you want to be 17 levels fighter and 3 barbarian, um, then
It's a
you
badass character.
then you need to start out fighter because you don't want to multiclass until after 5, because otherwise you are definitely going to feel weaker than the rest of the party. Even if you want your character to think like a barbarian first, it makes more sense to build it fighter first if you want more fighter levels in the end. So there's
Right.
it's kind of this really interesting kind of back and forth. Like take Sildiel for instance. Sildiel was a character that started out as sorcerer and therefore needed to take those first 5 level sorcerer, even though I think she was ready to multiclass at level like 4. But she needed to kind of start taking those levels on sorcerer before she could multiclass, and by the end was playing more as paladin than as sorcerer. But because I mean, whatever you start with, you really got to take those first 5. It really does kind of like change up how you want to do things. When is / are the worst times to take a level in a different class? Is there a point that it's too early or too late? I don't think there's ever a too late necessarily, but the too early, yeah, before
It
5.
really is definitely a thing.
Um, before 5 for sure is too early. And then it really does depend on the class, the class, the character, and just kind of what makes the most sense for
The
you.
reason.
I know. Paladin is one that I know. At 12th level, you get an ability score increase, and then from 13 until 18, you get nothing really. You get a little bonus
Also,
every once in a while here and there, but nothing super important. So I say for Paladin after that 13, if you wanna multi-class, it's a good point. But it really depends on the class. I think Bard is one to where they get some really cool stuff all the way until like 18, and then if
yeah,
you
you
want to
don't really want to
multi-class
do
with
that with him.
Bard, you're going to nerf yourself unless you wait until 19 or 20. So it really depends on the class.
I will also want to add this. Sometimes your decisions in the game can also cause a multi-class, so be careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes your actions can cause story changes, and that's when your DM's hitting you up in the DMs and going, "Hey, buddy,
Yep.
your
For
choices are doing this."
if you want an example of that, there is a thing that may or may not happen on Sunday or potentially
Oh
next
shit!
month that may involve somebody multiclassing. So
Oh fudge!
just a little teaser, or it's entirely possible that the party ignores it completely and nothing happens. But you never know.
Well, you haven't told me about this, so I don't know if it affects me or not. So I'm just gonna just let it ride.
I will say of all the party, Dash and Seven are the only two that I'm 100% certain will not end up with the multi-classed option.
I figured my character. That's the one good thing about playing such a. I wouldn't necessarily say a straight-laced character, but a character that is like heroic
Yeah.
and a little bit simple, but at the same time like evil. Where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
Let me kill it. Yeah.
let me destroy it and bring the light. It's one of
Um.
those fun options I get to play.
But yeah. So yeah. Again, I've said it 1,000 times, but before 6, those first 5 levels do not multi-class. After that, it really depends on the class, the story, all that stuff. So, it's one of those things. Your DM probably should be able to take a look with you also and let you know if it's maybe a good idea or not. Definitely make sure to be looking at what your class gets versus what that multi-classed class gets. And so on. Does multi-classing put a person behind their group power-wise at any point? Definitely before fifth level. After that, it depends. It seems everyone gets their nice power-up items at somewhat the same levels, so could that make a difference for you / the party as a whole? Yep, that's why those first 5 levels are so important. After that, so every 4 levels is an ability score increase. Usually you want that, but the thing too to keep in mind is if you're 7th level and for level 8 you take the level in, if you're okay, we'll put specifics to this. If you're 7 levels in fighter and you level up in level 8, you say, you know what? I've been playing this like dexterous fighter, and I think it would be really interesting to add a monk level. And you take your 8th level in monk so that you can get this martial arts attack. You can still get your ability score increase for fighter just next level. So it's really not that big of a deal, but those first 5 levels you will feel behind the rest of the party if you multi-class. So that's why I harp on that so much. But after that, really, if there's something that you really wanted, you're going to feel a little weaker potentially by putting it off, but it's easy to grab that later on. You're not going to do like irrevocable damage to your character or anything like that. But we touched on that mostly, so just kind of rattling through some of this. Here is a fun one. How many levels do you recommend putting into your second class?
Really varies on what you're trying to pull off. I mean, for mine, like my answer is what is the story and my actions dictating?
Hmm.
And how is it not only going to affect me, but how's it going to affect my party?
Yeah.
Those are literally the 2 questions I ask myself every time I do that. How's it affecting me story wise? How's it going to affect the party? Is it going to be detrimental? Because as a player and as a person, I don't want it to be detrimental. I want to
Right.
help my team.
Right.
Some people don't care. Some people just want to strictly do it for themselves, and I guess that's okay, but I've never played that way. People get on to me, but
I would say, just kind of interjecting real quick, do what you want and what is fun for you. And also, like, you just don't want to be a dick. Like,
right.
But
and that's where I come from. Like I have been guilty of playing too much to what a party needs, but for me
But if
also
that's
that's
what's
fun.
fun for you and what you want to
Right.
do, then do it. People get on you, Steve, because you choose to play a paladin over a bard, and then you complain for 5 levels that you're a paladin instead of a bard. That's when people get on you.
Those first levels suck as a paladin. Don't you tell me that they don't. They blow.
No, they don't. That's okay.
Those they blow so hard. Oh my god.
Uh, yeah. No, I think the answer to this is not a straight list answer. I think you're right. It depends
It's
on
not.
a lot of different things. But here I have like 5 answers to this. You could take 1 level. That is a very common thing for people to do. Again, it depends on what you're trying to do, right? If you are a barbarian who just wants to get access to a extra fighting style, then you take 19 levels in barbarian and 1 level in fighter, and you get an extra fighting style. Or if you really want action surge, then 2 levels in fighter. So
Right.
1, 2, 3, 5 are kind of the immediate answer, because 1 can give you a quick dip into some really interesting things that a different class has. Barbarian, you can get access to rage. Monk, you can get access to the bonus action unarmed attack. Fighter, you can get access to a fighting style. Warlock, you can get access to some pact magic. Some cantrips, even a sorcerer, you can get access to cantrips. So there's reasons to dip just 1 level. Those are some of the main ones right there. 2 levels, again, certain classes get some really interesting things at the 2nd level. A wizard gets their multiclass, or not multiclass, their subclass option at 2nd level. So if
Right.
you really want to have a spell book that you can put more spells into, and really, really like divination spells, and you want to be able to get them cheaper, then 2 levels in wizard will do that for you. Also gets you your portent roll, I think. Maybe that's 3rd. I can't
Right.
remember.
I don't know if I'm getting any kind of levels in fighter. I'm just taking 3 levels of fighter because
Well, but this is the thing
I'm getting
too.
that.
2 levels in fighter gets you action surge. So 2 is a very, very good one
3.
as well. 3 is a big one also because every class gets their subclass by 3rd level, and most of them get them at 3rd level. So if you've taken 1 level in fighter because you really wanted that fighting style, and then you're like, well, I'll take a 2nd one because I really want action surge, and then you look at it again, you're like, you know what? I could take a 3rd, and that way I can get access to, I can choose my subclass and be a champion and crit on a 19 instead of a 20.
Exactly.
So that's why 3 is a big one, and then 5's a big one because, again, those first 5 levels are super important. 5, if you're a wizard and take 5 levels in fighter, now you can attack twice. If you're a fighter and take 5 levels in wizard, now you have 3rd level spells. So it's very, like, that's why that one's another big one. But 5 levels, sacrificing 5 levels of your main class can be a lot. So if you just want to dip a little bit, I would say 1, 2, or 3. 5 is starting to become a true multi-class, and then I have made Titus was a character who was like 10 and 10. He
10
was
and 10, yeah.
right about as split as possible, and if that's what you want to do, that makes sense. Then do it. I also think kind of character theme and kind of story, whatever's going on, makes a lot of sense too. Sildiel, when she started to multi-class, it was because she was feeling connected to this deity, and there was no reason for her to ever take another sorcerer level again. Her taking sorcerer levels symbolized her power and trust in herself, and as soon as she started taking paladin levels, it symbolized her power and trust in Sith. And she was never going back to being a sorcerer again, and now she is a holy warrior of Sith. And
Right.
So game-wise and story-wise, there was no reason for her to ever take a level in sorcerer again, and now it's all paladin straight.
And it worked out extremely well.
So that's a very long-winded way of saying there's no one answer, but there are like my 5 different answers to that question, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of examples to it, so that's why it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
So it's a good answer
Yeah.
regardless.
How do you alternate leveling the main class and secondary class? Do you put a few levels into your secondary class before going to the main one, or just stop leveling the main class at some point and only level the second class? This is another one that kind of like goes hand in hand with what we just talked about. It really depends on what you want to do, right? If you
Right.
just want a quick dip, honestly, I would probably go ahead and like if you just want that quick fighter dip, I would probably go ahead and just take those 1, 2, 3 levels in fighter and then go back to what you were doing. It's just easier that way. Get it done, get it over, and then go forward. If you're feeling like you're too weak, then just take the one and then go back to your main class, and then you can kind of go back and forth. I think what I did with Titus is I took like one in cleric, one in fighter, one in cleric, one in fighter, and I don't think that was the greatest way to do it. I think if I were to go back and do it again, I would have taken, five cleric, five fighter, and then maybe alternated from there. But it really depends on whatever feels best for you. Again, I would make sure that I'm looking at what I get from one class versus the other, and making sure that I'm not going to feel underpowered with whatever decision I make. Do you have anything to add to
Right.
that?
Not really, because
Right.
it kind of just goes off of a feel at that point. So I think you've really touched on it. So,
Yeah. All right. Favorite multi-class you've ever played?
well, probably Ranger Fighter. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Uh,
been my
that's the only one that I can think of that you've done. I think my favorite was probably
through a whole
Titus.
campaign. Through a whole campaign, Ranger Fighter, but like I've tried different things.
Yeah.
Like the Fighter Barbarian is a lot of fun, and
I
Titus is
like.
just classic.
I actually really like a Ranger Barbarian. I think that can be really cool.
Oh, that'd be
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
I did it. You were doing that Dragonlance thing. I played one session in it, and I
Oh
made
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
dwarf that
yeah.
was
That was fun.
Ranger Barbarian, and
Yeah, that
that
was
was
a
pretty
good.
cool. Because he was able to he took the 2 weapon fighting style, so he got 2 attacks still,
Right.
but was able to rage also, and he took the dual wield feat or whatever it is, so that he
Mm-hmm.
could dual wield like a warhammer and a battle axe. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not what you
Pretty
think
cool.
of with you when it's a ranger, because he was strength based, but that was a lot of fun. Why are gunslinger wizards the best multiclass? They're not, Jimmy. But I'm glad you think that's fun. Dealing with multiclass min-maxing, doing it for story/RP as opposed to min-maxing. Yeah, we've talked about that some. I really don't think it matters. Whatever is fun for you. I would say if you're doing it purely for min-maxing, still come up with a story reason, because that'll be
Yeah,
more
come up
fun
for a
for
reason.
everyone. But I think it's totally fine for the reason to be, because a raging grizzly bear is awesome. Like, yeah, that's cool. Just like give me a story reason why. Like
Give me a
that'll be
reason.
more fun. So yeah, I think that's totally fine if you're doing it just to min max, but just come up with a reason for it. It'll be more fun for everyone.
And I
Um,
think the wizard going into it with that class is because, like, say you want to get some control spells,
yeah,
because you're already fire at a distance anyway. And if you take a few levels
yeah,
here where you can get like hold person, you're
yeah,
concentrating on that, and then all of a sudden you're getting advantage. Like not only are you getting advantage on your shot, your team's getting advantage too.
yeah, and
So
especially if you choose like so, we use when we do gunslingers, we normally use the Matt Mercer one, and I have kind of modified it a little bit on my side too, to where it uses intelligence a little bit more. So that just synergizes well with wizard, I guess.
right.
Um, Boom, boom, boom. Favorite you've seen/played. We've talked about that a lot. Do you plan on multiclassing when you roll your character or as the story progresses? Yeah, I think that depends.
For me, it's normally as the story progresses. Like we
Same.
talked about it with Dalton, but we definitely like we were like with the early game, and we didn't like put too much like stock in it at first, because like the first thing was first when John and I talked about the character, because I worked with him on it, is we wanted to make a character that was different for me to play,
Mhm.
that I didn't have to necessarily be the face. Now I could still be the responsible one, because at the time we had a character who was the leader but was a sack of shit personality wise. So I ended up being the responsible one. But at the same time, it was a very narrative driven character, and I was able to play certain emotions from it. And
Mhm.
as the story progressed, that's when I made those decisions on what to take and what was going to be best for myself, honestly, at that point, instead of versus what the party needed. I saw how the character was developing, and I played around that. I think it's literally looking how your character's developing, taking enough notes, and even though I'm bad at notes, I'm at least conscious enough to take notes where my story and my character is developing, and
Mhm.
then making that decision, and then talking about it with your dungeon master, your game
Yeah.
master.
Yeah.
That's super key. John, what do you think about this, and this is why? I think that's a great reason, Steve. This let's work that out, because not only are you discussing it with them, but you're also giving your DM some ideas to how to build the game further out for
Mhm.
yourself. It and you just do it, we're just like, whatever.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a big thing right there. Right. That communication can be more fun for everyone. Because
Right.
I've had players or seen players before who just like randomly take a multi-class, and it's like, okay, like that happened, and hopefully that's fun
Yeah.
for the player. But like, if you can kind of talk about it with your DM and party as a whole, everyone can kind of get behind it and enjoy it and have fun with it.
Right.
It's just more fun that way. I think so. So Titus, I knew from level 1 I wanted to be cleric fighter. And when I've done like one shots, obviously, then there's not a whole lot of as the story progresses. It's just whatever you make in the moment. But for the most part, I agree. I think it just is, when it comes up organically, is more. It just makes more
It's
sense
so
to me.
much more satisfying too.
Like with Markle, we hit 13th level, and I'm just like, I don't get anything until 18, like nothing fun until 18. So you know what? I'm gonna
Fuck it.
be a smite machine. Like that's what I'm gonna do. Like that's what he does anyway. He charges into
What he
battle
did
and
anyway.
does damage. So it just made sense. So I think that's whatever's fun for you, but that's usually how I see it playing out better anyway. Um,
Right.
there are requirements for stats to multiclass, but as a DM, do you ever put additional requirements to multiclass into any particular class? An
I
example
haven't.
being requiring backstory or character development to use a specific class.
I prefer that, like we talked about recently, but I've never
Yeah.
forced it. The only time I don't think I've ever forced a multi-class except for like I take that back.
Mhm.
I did that once when we were trying to run that extra Strahd
You've done
game
that a
because it
couple of
made
times,
sense.
actually. You've done it a couple of
Have I?
times. Well, actually,
I don't remember.
no, you're right. You haven't forced it before, but you've given like, hey, this has now happened in the story, and you can switch, or you can,
Right. I've
do
done
the story.
that.
Yeah, you've done that.
I've given it as an option, but
Yeah,
I've tried to avoid forcing it.
yeah.
But there's occasions when I've forced it, but it's super rare for me. And normally it's just because like that's why like just touching back earlier is like your decisions can influence that to where like the game will be like, well, I mean, you did this, now you got this, now you're stuck, and then
Yeah.
do you want to retire this character? I mean, it's gonna
Yeah, I
yeah.
I like this question, and I think that's a really interesting idea. I have never
Uh,
done that. Like I have never. So the question again is if you put any additional requirements to multiclass. So like
I have
requiring a
not.
backdoor news and res or whatever. So like if we're you have a level 5 party and someone randomly wants to take a warlock level, well, okay, in game did you meet with said patron or something like that? Like
Right.
something along those lines, I guess, would
You do
kind
a
of be a
side
good
quest for it
example
or
of it.
something.
I love the idea. I've never done it. I think if you're going to do something like that as a DM, you have to make that expectation known before the game starts, though. Because
Right.
if you get to 7th level and your bard is over here and says, you know what? I don't really care about what I get at 8th, ninth, 10th. I'm going to multiclass into fighter because I'm a Valor Bard and it just makes sense for me. And you say, oh, well, you see, I require you to go through 6 months of training in order to multiclass, so can't do it. Like
Yeah, super
that
lame.
sucks. So
That's
if you,
super lame.
but if you
Yeah.
make that expectation on the front end, that can be really cool because the bard gets to that point and they're like, you know what, I think I've been looking at this for a while. I think when I hit 13th level is when I'm gonna do it. Okay, cool. Me DM knows that and knows that I can start to get this ready because this is a thing that I say you have to go through, but like as I'm controlling the story, we can kind of figure that out. Like that can be a lot of fun. You just got to make that exception on the front end, I think, or make expectation on the front end. I also, so there are stat requirements, right? So like to multi-class in a paladin, you have to have like a 13 strength or something like that, so on and so forth. I think if a character has a good reason to kind of overcome those, I'll let it slide too. So
We'll
for
make it work.
instance, uh, when Sildio multiclassed into Paladin, Tracy was like, "Hey, you have to have a 13 strength. I don't, but I have like a 15 dex. Like, can I be a dex based Paladin?" And yeah, like the traditional Paladin is a strength based Paladin. They wear heavy armor, all that stuff. But it just made so much sense for her. I was like, "Yeah, well, let's be a dex based Paladin. We'll make it work." I think those requirements are there for a reason because you don't want the 7 intelligence barbarian multiclassing into wizard because they're just going to suck at it.
Right.
But if the character has a reason for it and it makes sense, I think that's a good. Just do it.
I guess in a quick touch on the jack of all trades question and the master of
Yeah, yeah,
none
yeah,
is there's your answer because like if you're that dumbass who takes one level in this, one level of that, I mean, just expect to just be garbage and die.
yep. Yeah, so there's a question about like the guy who takes one level in everything or whatever.
Right.
Look, you're just not gonna have fun with it. Like, if you are, if you're making a one shot where the idea is make the most bizarre character, that can be a lot of fun. In a campaign, if you are doing something along those lines, then you're just an asshole. Like, it's that simple.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle one shot, we had something like that happen. We had terrible rolls,
Yeah,
and David took those rolls and made the I'm trying to PC version of this, but the special needs brother
yeah.
Ninja Turtle,
Love it.
and whenever he would miss, because he was just terrible.
Yeah,
I would be like, you hit him, but it's like slapping him, and they're like,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
your brothers are looking at you, and they're like, yeah, you got this, buddy, good job, and
I
that's
love
how
it.
he loved it. I was like, because I was like, I'll re-roll it. He goes, no, I want to keep these, and it was
Yeah,
a special needs brother that we made, and I was
right.
like, okay,
All
right.
that being said, the actual question is how many different classes would you say is too many? And taking that as a serious question, uh, I mean, I've seen 3 classes work before. I don't know that any more than that would really be able to. It really depends on
I
how
couldn't
everything
do it.
synergizes. It's tough. To make that work, but I've seen, ranger with 1 level barbarian, one level fighter. You get an extra fighting style. You get like that can work. I think anything more than 3 is almost impossible to make work well. But I could be wrong. That's just kind of what I've seen. And with that, that's all of them. So we went a little long here, but we had a lot of questions, good questions. This is a
It's
fun
okay.
topic. So,
They're solid.
that is the Flycast. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Again, if you have not before, go ahead and click a link somewhere. Join the Discord. We already have what next week's topic is going to be. It's going to be on when to retire a character. We'll start taking questions now for next week. Hopefully, we'll have a good chunk of those there. Get to as many as we can.
Right.
Until then, though, you can catch us on our respective channels. Steve streams over at twitch.tv/SteveOTheDMO. He streams off and on. Not a set schedule at the moment necessarily, but you got any plans currently?
I'm probably gonna take a quick break just to eat, and it's Destiny new season starts. I'm probably gonna come on
Hey.
probably around 10, play for a couple hours, hang out and chat. So if you guys want to drop by, I'll probably be doing that. And this weekend, I know we got the home game. Shout out there.
Woo!
But hopefully after that, I'm going to try to move some stuff down south because like trying to get my truck fixed. But I'm going to start trying to work on my games again and see if we can get back to some kind of normalcy. I will admit I'm struggling idea wise to make some things work. So I'm going to have to run them by players and see what happens. So
Right on.
that's where the communication comes in. So
Cool. So he'll probably be streaming later on today. A lot of times he does after the Flycast, and then every once in a while, off and on, normally either Destiny or sometimes he's on an old school game kick. Sometimes he streams just kind of prepping for D&D, all that stuff. And then whenever he kind of gets back in the groove, he does have a Sunday night game that will be streamed over there at Steve the DMO. You can always follow his his Discord as well for updates as to when he's going live. Over here on the Fly Captain channel, we actually have a game tomorrow night. That's exciting. Bi-weekly game. Every other Thursday we play, so we'll be playing tomorrow night. It's going to be a lot of fun. The party may or may not encounter... Well, I think Megan can hear me, so I'm not going to talk about too much, but
That's fair.
certain something is going to be going down at the inn that they've been staying at, and it should kind of kick off the main arc for this little this little adventure that we got.
Some newer players too, and it's fun to watch newer players and interact with them. I got the opportunity to play last time, and I think it was cool for them to interact with me because I am a character.
That he is.
They got to see how I play a character, and I'm like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? But I played how I played, so it was a lot of fun.
And then we will be here again. Again, that's going to happen on this channel, Fly Captain's channel. And then, again, on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So tomorrow will be at 7 p.m. Eastern. Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we will be back here again for the Wine Women Adventure Tour. They are currently in the Underdark. They just killed a giant purple worm that ate...
Hell yeah!
I can't remember which one of you guys it ate, but it ate one of you. And then the entire, not the entire, but most of the rest of the party then went into the worm to try and retrieve the one that got eaten.
I think it ate
and
Grady.
All started to disintegrate as well. It was nonsense, but that should be fun too. So we'll see what happens with them on Sunday. And then, of course, we'll be back here on Wednesday. Until then, though, again, follow Discord. You can see any other times we're going live. And thank you so much for hanging out with us, guys. Peace out.
Thank you. Goodbye.